Hello, my name is Dannielle Viera, and today I'll be reading my story, A Nose for Trouble, which is in the Share Your Story anthology. It's a kind of magic, stories and spells from second-rate sorcerers. Sophie sat with her head against the window, trying not to hear the conversation behind her. This indifference irked the speakers, and they raised their voices above the drone of the bus's engine. "Imagine going to witch school with a nose like that," cackled Kayla. "It's so smooth and tiny and pink. It's super revolting," spat Samantha. "And what about the snobby way it turns up at the end like a ski jump?" added Ava. Sophie's cheeks flushed red. Although the girls didn't say her name, she knew they were talking about her. Ava had inherited a charmingly crooked nose from her mother, while Samantha's nose boasted the beginnings of a wonderful wart. Kayla was proud of the green sheen on her bulbous schnoz, but Sophie's witchy nose was nowhere to be seen. As the beastly trio began a second round of insults, the small ginger head in front of Sophie spun around. "Hey sis, look at this!" Ivy held up a library book about African animals. "Did you know that zebras sleep standing up?" "Fascinating," Sophie said, lifting her head off the glass. Loud snores became snorts in her ears. Her tummy twisted into a knot. Ivy frowned at the girls and then went back to reading her book. Before the girls could say anything else, the bus pulled up outside Beldam Academy. Sophie waited until the other kids had scrambled off the bus before she dragged herself to class. Miss Bellman marked the roll. "I'm glad to see you're all here. This afternoon I planned a very special lesson involving these." She walked over to the sink in the art corner and lifted up a tray of bright red bottles. The liquid inside them flickered in the light. "What's in the bottles, Miss?" Kayla asked. Miss Bellman winked. "You'll have to wait and see." The morning crawled by as slowly as a sloth. Finally, it was lunchtime. Sophie sat by herself under a tree and carefully opened her lunchbox. Her mum had lost her sense of smell 2 years ago when her cauldron blew up, so Sophie expected the worst, and the contents didn't disappoint. A garlic bread sandwich stuffed with tuna and blue cheese. A rustle behind her made Sophie slam the lunchbox shut, but not soon enough. "I think I'm going to puke," gagged Kayla. "The hairs on my water wilting," wailed Samantha. "That stink is enough to straighten anyone's nose," added Ava. Sophie jumped up, her fingers clenched around her wand. The carving on the handle pressed painfully into her palm. She wanted to turn the girls into slugs, but she couldn't remember the spell. It was just as well. Cranky old Mrs. Toady had trudged over to them. "Problem?" she croaked. Sophie shook her head, picked up her lunchbox and stormed off. Why did she always have trouble with spells? She decided to go to the library to learn the words she needed for the next time. The air in the library was sweet and toasty like melty marshmallow that had been roasted in a fire pit. Sophie stashed her lunchbox under a desk and prodded her wand into her pocket. She sidled into the reference section where golden words glittered from leather-bound spines. Abracadabra alphabet, charms for a clean cauldron, hocus pocus focus. Finally, she found the book she was searching for. As she started to pull Hex Your Enemies from the shelf, a smaller book fell to the floor. Sophie picked it up and ran her finger over the title. Bewitching Beauty, 13 Jinxes to Jazz Up Your Look, she murmured. Intrigued, she flipped through the pages. There were spells for changing nails into claws, for transforming straight hair into a frizzy cloud, and for magicking moles. When she got to the last spell, she gasped. "This is just what I need. Grow a knobbly nose." Sophie read the instructions. Run the end of your wand along your nose from the bridge to the tip. When it reaches the tip, tap your nose 3 times and then say Proboscis eleganta. Your nose will be instantly revamped into a chic witch's whiffer. With trembling hands, Sophie retrieved the wand from her pocket. When the cool wood touched her skin, a shiver shimmied down her spine. She moved the wand down her nose and tapped it twice. Before she could tap a third time, a familiar voice broke the spell. "Hey sis, what are you doing?" Sophie swiveled around hastily. "Nothing," she squeaked. Ivy shrugged. "I was going to hand in my library book, but it's just so interesting. Did you know that elephants can hold up to 10 litres of water in their trunks?" Sophie grimaced. She put her hands on her sister's shoulders, wheeled her around, and scooted her out of the reference section. With excitement bubbling in her tummy, Sophie walked deeper among the shelves to where the dusty books from centuries ago were stored. Once again, she slid her wand along her nose. Taking a deep breath, she tapped her nose 3 times. She opened her mouth to say the spell, and an image of Ivy and her precious book flooded across her mind. Then she uttered the all-important words, "Proboscis elephanta." A puff of grey smoke blinded her. "Hang on," thought Sophie. "The book never said anything about smoke." Sophie's face felt strange. She reached up to touch her nose, but the bumps seemed more like wrinkles. And her nose went on and on and on. The smoke was making her eyes water, and she sneezed. The trumpet gust of air cleared the smoke away. Kids swarmed over to find out what had caused the sound, and laughter soon buzzed inside the usually quiet library. "Sophie has a trunk!" Mrs. Page Turner, the librarian, quickly shooed the kids away and led Sophie to the school sick bay. Nurse Needlepoint took one look at Sophie and sighed. "There's nothing I can do. You'll just have to wait until the spell wears off." The end of lunch bell clanged. "Can I stay here?" asked Sophie hopefully. "No, you're not sick. You can go back to class." Sophie groaned. She walked as slowly as possible back to the classroom. When she plodded through the door, Samantha and Ava sniggered and pointed. "I didn't think anything could be worse than a little pink nose," Kayla sneered, "but I was wrong." Miss Spellman's eyebrows shot up into a fringe when she saw Sophie's trunk, but she didn't comment on it. Instead, she clapped her hands and said, "It's time to conjure up some enchanted volcanoes." She handed out information sheets and told them that all the items they needed were laid out on the table in the art corner. Soon, wire and plaster and paint were flying across the classroom as the students used the summoning charm to gather what they needed. Once everybody's volcanoes had been decorated, Miss Spellman brought out a tray of red bottles. "Each of these contains a potent potion called liquescent lava," she stated. "Only use a few drops. We don't want a big explosion." After the teacher had handed out the bottles, Sophie glanced around the classroom. Most of the girls were carefully dripping the potion into their creations. Kayla, Samantha, and Ava tipped their 3 bottles into one volcano and jumped back, waiting for the bang. But there was no blast. Instead, fluid flames engulfed their volcano and flowed onto the floor. The hot river headed towards another group of girls who screamed. Spreading wider, the liquescent lava licked at surrounding chairs until they started to smoulder. "Quick, get out, girls!" Miss Spellman shrieked. As Sophie ran past the supply table, she saw the sink. Ivy's voice echoed in her head. "Elephants can hold 10 litres of water in their trunks." Sophie changed direction and dashed to the sink. She turned on the water and began to suck it up. When her trunk was full, she spun around and sprayed the classroom. It took 3 full trunks of water, but she finally stopped the lava rampage. Miss Spellman rushed back into the classroom and gave Sophie a hug. "You saved us!" The girls patted Sophie on the back and high-fived her trunk. Kayla and her cronies hung back, staring at the ground. Sophie pushed through the chattering crowd and stood in front of the terrible trio. "I'm not sure if Miss Spellman knows who caused this eruption," she declared, emphasizing the word "knows" with a twirl of her trunk. "But I won't breathe a word if you promise to start being nicer to people." Kayla, Samantha, and Ava looked at each other and nodded. "Sorry for teasing you," said Kayla. We'll definitely keep our noses clean from now on.